Hello and welcome to our session at the Reagan Institute Summit on Education. My name is Emily Tate Sullivan, and I'm a senior reporter at EdSurge, a nonprofit newsroom that covers national education issues and where I write about early childhood education. I am also, as it happens, a proud Coloradan, and I am pleased to be joined today by Colorado Governor Jared Polis. Welcome, Governor, and thank you for being here with me.
Emily, it's great to see you, and it's great to be part of this important discussion.
Let's dive right in. You have made early childhood education a top priority for your administration. I'd love to know, sort of the backstory there. What inspired your interest in this space? Is there maybe a defining moment or a story from your personal or professional life that you could share?
Well, I've been involved with education for over 20 years. I served on the State Board of Education in Colorado, and it was really the data that first drove me to the desire to get involved with high quality universal early childhood education, really looking at closing the achievement gap and the strong body of data that shows not only the positive benefits of early childhood education financially in terms of reduced grade repetition and reduced youth adjudication, but just as importantly, closing the achievement gap before it occurs, which is far more effective than everything that we need to do and are trying to do in fifth grade and eighth grade and 10th grade. And it really makes an enormous difference those early years in giving every child a strong start. Now, of course, as a father of an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old, we experienced firsthand. Both of our kids went to preschool and entered, school ready and ready to go. And like many parents, were able to pick a preschool program that met their needs, as our new universal preschool program in Colorado has hundreds of options for parents. And we're very excited that over 25,000 families will be able to take advantage of free preschool in Colorado this fall.
So you said for you, it was about the numbers in the beginning. I have to imagine that since you first became interested, you have seen other people catch on to these numbers. Obviously, the pandemic created a lot more awareness and I think public interest in this issue. Can you talk a little bit about how you have seen the attitudes and urgency around this issue change since you first shifted your focus to it?
Yeah, sure. So what always, again, drives me is the compelling case on the data for closing the achievement gap for every child to have the opportunity to get ahead and get education, regardless of the education status or race or income level of their parents. But I think we've added even more arguments along the way that led to, by the way, a record vote in Colorado. 67.8% of the voters voted for our preschool initiative that funded it. It passed in red counties and blue counties, rural and urban. Really incredible to see people come together. So in addition, of course, to benefiting the kids, which drives me, is the workforce benefit today for parents to be able to return to work sooner if they choose, and saving people money. Even families that had preschool struggled to put together $5,000–6,000 a year or more that are now being saved by the universal free preschool program. So it was a sacrifice that families no longer have to make. That money can go towards a down payment for a home or savings for college. So really adding those additional elements. Again, it's the right thing for the kids, but it also turns out that high quality early childhood education and easier access to childcare is also the right thing for our economy today with the workforce shortage we have. And it also saves families money when many are really tightening their belt to get by when interest rates and costs have gone up.
You've mentioned some of the challenges already, just with the workforce and with the expense. Who in Colorado do you feel is most impacted by those challenges? And I'm curious how you would frame them sort of in a national picture. Is it different or similar to what other states are experiencing with early childhood education?
Well, everybody benefits from universal early child care, and that's another thing beyond the academic benefit, the workforce benefit. There's something unifying, just as third grade's universal and 10th grade's universal, to really have the ability of everybody to be able to have diverse classrooms with people of different income levels together. I think one could argue this is more of a subjective thing, but I think it's good for society as a whole to have that unifying factor as preschool at a time when there's too many divisions. But really, what we had before in Colorado, before our universal preschool initiative went live this fall, is of course you had the wealthy who could afford quality preschool. You had some slots for very low income, and they were often able to get preschool. But then you had that vast piece in the middle, including many working families struggling to get by that couldn't afford it, didn't get it free. And then you had families on the upper end of that able to sacrifice and maybe give up or delay homeownership or other dreams to try to get their kid in preschool today. So really it's that broad sector of America, from working families to the upper middle class, that I think benefit the most. But really it benefits everybody and our society as a whole to have kids ready to enter the classroom and succeed in kindergarten and have that high quality early childhood education with pre-literacy and social emotional and all the other things that go into a great preschool program.
So you're mentioning the Universal Preschool Initiative, which is obviously one of your big victories as governor of Colorado. Just say more about what that looks like. So I know it's been rolled out and is officially launching this fall. Can you explain a little bit about what that will look like and how you feel like it's going so far?
First became governor, Colorado only had half-day kindergarten. And again, preschool is only for, if you will, the wealthy, some low-income slots, and then everybody else struggling to figure it out. So the first thing we did in my very first year is we made a full-day kindergarten available to every family. And that saved families about $400 to $500 a year. But in addition, it made sure that everybody was able to access full-day kindergarten. Because before that, you had families that couldn't afford it, the kids going home at 11:30 and not getting the benefit of the learning day as other kids did. So after we got that in place, we went to the voters with universal free preschool. The mechanism we used is effectively a vaping or nicotine tax. We had this kind of loophole where vaping had zero tax, even though cigarettes were taxed. And so we said it should be kind of the nicotine side and applied that. And that's a dedicated funding source, which is important. It's not subject to, political debate. It's not subject to, different parties or politicians coming in and going after it. It's a dedicated funding source, universal free preschool. Which we are now rolling out this fall. So the demand is very strong. We've already had over 25,000 families sign up. In fact, they were just matched with their preschool provider. 91% got matched in their first match, and others, the ones who didn't, will be able to go back and pick another provider. Almost every school district, private providers, we call it mixed providers. We wanted everybody who offers high quality preschool to be able to, implement this program to serve families at a time when costs are rising, at a time when families are making sacrifices. We didn't want that sacrifice to be their kids' education.
That's great. And I know already it has garnered a lot of good attention for the state. Have other state leaders or local leaders come to you and asked how you've gotten this done? And I guess I'm wondering about the scalability of what we've done here and how we're funding it, and whether that's applicable to other places who might be interested in doing the same.
Yeah, it's always going to be a fight and difficult, not impossible. If you kind of go into the general education realm and you said, let's stretch it another year, and the funding that comes with it, it's hard to do. That's why our decision, and I think in some other states they're looking at this too, is go after a dedicated funding source. And in our case, we went after one that made sense, has ancillary health benefits. The coalition included health advocates, heart and lung advocates, many others. That fundamentally makes our state healthier, but also provided the dedicated funds for preschools. So we were excited to do that and work to get that done. I think, finding out what works in your state as a dedicated funding source is a good area to look into. And then the other is program delivery. We made the conscious choice very early on not to deliver this through school districts. School districts are providers, and probably 70% of the preschools in the state are school districts. But when you do it through them, it automatically makes it more difficult for community-based preschools, which we had wanted to embrace, of course, for their quality and convenience and specialized programs as preschools, but also because it helps them in their entire childcare mission. Many of them are birth to 4, birth to 5. So making sure that they were able to take advantage of this new robust funding source to be able to better support their overall contribution to childcare in our state, which also helps power our workforce and opportunities for people, including parents, to be able to go back to work sooner if they choose.
And another recent change is the state's new Department of Early Childhood. What is the role of this agency and how has it been received so far by educators, families, and other stakeholders?
I think we're the 8th or 9th state, something like that, to create a Department of Early Childhood. And again, a very conscious decision. didn't want to give it to, if you will, the Department of Education, because it's not K-12. It's distinct from locally elected school boards. They run districts. They can participate, but they don't run it. It was distinct enough from everything we did. And we also wanted to make sure we were able to focus on those important birth to 5 years and how Colorado, even beyond preschool, can be a great state to have children, raise a family, tying in the healthcare, behavioral health piece, parental training, kind of all those things that can go into making sure that children can succeed regardless of their economic circumstances or geography or race in Colorado.
And would you say it's been a pretty positive reception so far?
I think it has. Like anything, we had to work through the legislature to create a new department. We got it done. I'm very happy that we have a great director, Dr. Lisa Roy, heading up at our own agency with that focus. It really sets Colorado up for success. When I was elected governor, I really wanted to move Colorado from laggard to leader in early childhood education. Remember, we only had half-day kindergarten, even many of our neighboring states had full day. So this is a big part of moving from laggard to leader with data-driven policies that help make sure we can meet the learning needs of kids and prepare kids for success in life.
Are there any main challenges or questions for you in thinking about where the agency is? I know it's still early, but is there any big question that remains there?
Oh, well, there's a lot of work ahead, right? A lot of our work this first year is the launch of universal preschool. That kind of is the big shiny thing, as it should be. It's a great new benefit for Coloradans. It starts this fall, but there's a lot more work beyond that. So beyond refining that, obviously coordinating with school districts and other providers, it's really the full set of both policies and resources that can help make sure that children in those very important early years, birth to 4, are prepared for success, both academically and in life.
Sure. We often talk about children when we are talking about, let me try this again. We often focus on children. We're talking about early childhood education, naturally. But what about the early childhood educators? Many of them make steep personal and financial sacrifices to continue to provide care and education in what effectively amounts to a broken system in this country. How is the state of Colorado supporting early childhood educators? And that goes for both those that are already in the field today and those that are in demand for tomorrow.
So 2 ways. Certainly with the robust funding of universal preschool, it's about $6,000 per student. So for a class of 10, that's about $60,000. And that's preschool's part-time generally, about 15, 20 hours a week. So you could often have effectively an instructor, a teacher, with about $120,000 in funding if they're running 2 classes of 10. Doesn't mean it all goes to them. As you know, there's a lot of overhead. They're not making $120,000. We all know that. It's for the classroom. It's for learning specialists. It's for everything else. But the key thing is that robust funding source didn't exist before. So the pay scale is getting close to the K-12 professional pay scale. Not that we pay our K-12 teachers enough. We need to do more there. But at the very least, we want to make sure our early child professionals have that level of professional pay that allows them to support themselves. For that future pipeline, we made the training for becoming a certified early childhood educator free through our community college system. So we looked at a few very high demand professions, nursing assistant, a lot of them are healthcare related, nursing assistant, EMT. Some of these had workforce shortages that were particularly acute because of the pandemic and many people moving away from healthcare positions. So among those positions where we identified shortages were early childhood educators. And we said, we are going to make it free. And that's a real free, as I like to say. It's through our community college system. There's no shipping and handling. There's no textbook costs. There's no, classroom fees. It's a real free that enables them to pursue that career. Because asking people to go in debt and make enormous sacrifices without the huge earning potential there is a much harder ask. And sure enough, across the programs that we made free, it increased participation about 20 to 30%. And we're excited to do that to kind of open the doors of the early childhood profession and the other healthcare related professions that we've made available through our community college system to more people.
That come with making that free? Does it come with a new or different requirement for education for early childhood educators?
Yeah, not yet is the short answer. But what we are excited to do, and of course, launching universal preschool was our first order of business, and it starts this fall. We are very thoughtfully looking at accountability over time, quality indicators, and then tying that back into how we best prepare early childhood professionals. So this is a piece that the data will drive over a period of several years as we learn very tangibly about what works, what isn't working, and can tie that into how we effectively train for high quality early childhood education.
So in the immediate term, having universal preschool is helping those in the profession by closing the gap between where their pay is and where K-12 educators are. And then you are making education free for those who may be interested in going into this field. Is that right?
Yeah, those are the two immediate things. I would also add that many early childhood professionals have young children themselves. And so the availability of preschool, low-cost childcare, another initiative of ours, also helps many young parents be able to work in this field, which would otherwise be cost prohibitive for having to afford preschool and early childhood care for their own kids.
Yeah, I think you've touched on this a bit, but one of the biggest challenges in the early childhood space right now is the shortage of workers. It's one of those sectors that has not rebounded to pre-pandemic levels. But it's also important that the people who do the caring and educators of young learners are delivering that at a high quality. So do you view these two things at odds? It sounds like you might be threading the needle with these policies, but can you just say a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's no interest from our perspective in lowering the standard. We're increasing the professionalism, and again, making sure that we do what works, the quality indicators, and the work that we're beginning now that we again have been able to roll out the program. Is going to be very thoughtful and data driven. And so we're very excited about what they can bring. We embrace alternative routes to early childhood education. So it doesn't have to be through that community college or college system. There's other ways to get there. There's on-the-job skills that can be learned. There's a lot of great ways to do it. So we really want to be open to those and really double down on what works. Certainly, again, in the short term, making it free to get the credentialing has increased demand and made that more available to people who might have the heart for the work and need to get the knowledge to be able to do it successfully.
Great. I mean, it sounds like you have addressed the two of the biggest issues, right? So the affordability and accessibility for families, and the working conditions for the professionals. I'm wondering if you've had a chance to hear directly from those who are impacted or will be impacted about, what this is doing for them.
Yeah, we actually did our matches of parents and kids to their preschool providers recently, and as I said, 91% of them got placed. The others will get another round to be able to pick. And I called many of the parents, not close to 25,000, but I called maybe 10, and I got to notify them that their kid had gotten in, of course, into their first choice, and hear from them about what it meant to them. Of course, I visited many, probably dozens of preschools and early childhood centers, both during my time as governor and in Congress, and got to see kind of what works in the field, and hopefully that helps inform our work here. I would add that we have a few jurisdictions in Colorado, Denver being one, that is a Denver preschool program, Summit County being another, that actually have additional locally driven funding for preschool. So what that means is even more additional hours at no cost to parents, pushing back some of those resources now that the state is supporting universal free preschool to be able to serve 3-year-olds who are at higher risk. So it's freed up in a couple of jurisdictions in our state. It's had this beneficial effect of freeing up existing resources that were in place for serving more kids even earlier as well.
Great. I am wondering what other state leaders, governors, legislators, agency directors, what can they do if they want to follow your leadership and leadership in Colorado in this early childhood education space?
I would recommend a dedicated focus with the Department of Early Childhood Education. We had Department of Human Services, Department of Education, maybe even one or two other departments that touch this area. And they're wonderful agencies with great cabinet running them, but it really makes sense to have a focus on those birth to 4 years, just as we do through the Department of Education on kindergarten through 12th grade. Those birth to 4 years are every bit as important, if not more. And so I would recommend that step of focusing those services, whether it's a commissioner level or cabinet level, whatever it is, trying to pull that into one area to make it more efficient. And then, of course, expanding those learning opportunities, preschool, kindergarten, quality childcare, really depending on where your state is at, and helping to fill those gaps.
Similarly, I'm wondering, when you were embarking on this work, if there was maybe an individual or states or entire programs that you looked to for leadership, or models that you might want to emulate.
We certainly looked at what was out there. As I said, we made the decision very early on. We want mixed delivery. We knew we needed to find a dedicated funding source. We knew we wanted to administer this in a way that welcomed school districts as preschool providers, but wasn't through school districts. And I think we're able to strike that balance. I mean, our goals were convenience, quality, and with the fact that we have so many providers, thousands across our state that have signed up and are participating is very exciting, compelling, and it means that parents have lots of great choices that work for them.
As you know, it's been 40 years since A Nation at Risk was published. One of President Reagan's legacies was his desire to see policymakers reach across the aisle, come together, and effect change and take action on some of the most complex issues facing our country. You have had success bringing people together and building coalitions despite challenging political climate nationally. Talk to me about your commitment to good policy over partisanship, especially in this environment.
So when I was first elected in 2018, running on a platform of full day kindergarten and adding preschool, my very first call as a governor-elect was to a Republican representative, Jim Wilson of Salida, who had been working on, former superintendent, been working on full day kindergarten for many years. And I said, we're going to get this done. And he was our lead sponsor, along with the Democrat Barb McLaughlin on the full day kindergarten bill. When we built out the coalition around preschool, as I said, it passed in very conservative counties. When you get 67.8% of the vote statewide, I mean, this passed in red counties, blue counties, because everybody, 67.8% of the people, Republican or Democrat, conservative, liberal, they agree that kids ought to be able to go to preschool. Kids ought to be able to go to preschool. So it really resounded across the partisan, the geographic divide, the economic divide. And we're very excited that this fall, kids in Colorado will be able to go to preschool.
Yeah, I have heard so many people say that early childhood education is and can be and should be a bipartisan issue. I mean, there's very good reasonings from lots of different angles to make the argument for it. So have you found that, obviously in the state, have you found that outside of Colorado to be true?
It's harder to say. So I obviously worked at this issue in Congress nationally. I was very hopeful that whatever was in Build Back Better could potentially include preschool. It obviously didn't. It's a little harder at the national level because you get into involved with the slightly more ideological discussion of what the federal government should be involved with or shouldn't be involved with. But I think if people are just driven by the data, at least making sure that more kids have access to early childhood education, obviously the Head Start, Head First has strong bipartisan support, is practical, effective. It can meet goals that conservatives and progressives share, like reducing crime and improving upward mobility for families. And these are all great things. And I encourage people of both parties to look at supporting early childhood education, regardless of what level of government they work at. It could be at your school district level, it could be municipal level, state level, or federal level.
You mentioned your time in Congress. I'm just curious how your understanding of this issue of early childhood education has evolved since that time.
Well, I've always been a strong advocate, but frankly, the ability to get more done and actually do it rather than just talk about it as a governor was part of what drove me to take this path. So I certainly spent a decade talking about it. I think we launched universal preschool bills, and I think it was with trying to remember the time which senators and representatives, we Klobuchar and a couple others were there. It was a great effort, but and there was a real opportunity after I left. Build Back Better almost did it, but the fact is, it still hasn't happened nationally. So I was, I'm patient, but 10 years is a long time, so a little impatient. So I, came home to actually do it in Colorado rather than probably just talk about it in Congress for another 10 years. I certainly, if I was still doing that, I'd certainly still be talking about it. But we need to get it done and stop making excuses. And whether, again, a district, a city, everybody can get involved. Mayors can get involved, school boards can get involved, governors, and of course, members of Congress as well. And I'm still hopeful that someday we'll have this opportunity for early childhood education across the nation.
On that note, what advice do you have to other governors or leaders seeking to impact the early childhood landscape, whether nationally or in their jurisdictions?
Well, it's a great benefit for the people of your state, saving people money, improving the workforce today, investing in the next generation, and opportunity to improve academic achievement and outcomes. And it really aligns today's needs with the needs of tomorrow in a compelling way that can help prepare your state for success. So we're excited about this new direction and moving Colorado from laggard to leader in early childhood. And of course, we're moving ahead with more opportunities for high quality childcare, including employer-based and site-based, so parents don't have to run around as much and can visit their child during lunch. And we want to be on the forefront of making Colorado the best state to have kids.
Wonderful. Well, Governor Polis, thank you so much for joining this conversation, and thank you to everyone who tuned in.
Thank you, Emily. Great to see everybody, and thank you to the Reagan Institute.